This is the fourth lecture in Unit 1. In this portion, we will begin to talk about some of the bigger chemicals of the body. The macromolecules are the carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Each of these has a pattern for its structure and a specific use in the body. Carbohydrates are also known as sugars. This is what the body uses for fuel. A simple carbohydrate is one that is easily broken down versus the complex carbohydrate that takes more effort for the body to break down. Often the complex carbohydrates are larger with more bonds, but how quickly and easily they are broken down depends on the specific bonds that are formed between the individual carbohydrate units. When we look at this in nutrition, we refer to it as the glycemic index. This compares how quickly the nutrients are able to get into the blood. Generally, the easier and quicker they enter the blood, the greater the insulin response, and the faster the blood sugar will lower afterwards. When the blood sugar drops quickly, it will cause us to be hungry again quickly. This is interesting because foods don't always fall where we would expect them to. Among the lowest in glycemic index are foods like legumes, nuts, and plain yogurt. Some of the highest are things like pretzels and white bread. White bread and table sugar have a very similar glycemic index, both of which are higher than many candy bars. Monosaccharides refer to there being only one sugar molecule, while a disaccharide has two, and a polysaccharide has many. Saccharide is another term for a sugar. The sugars join together and form a repeating chain of sugars with branches. Lipids are fats, which our body uses for energy storage, insulation, and to form hormones. With fats, instead of being built of repeating subunits, instead we have a long chain of carbons with varying numbers of hydrogens attached to the legs. When a fat is saturated, we say it contains the maximum possible number of hydrogens connected to each carbon. This makes for a more stable molecule that is going to be more solid at room temperature. In our diet, these include things like butter and lard. You can see in the example these are very symmetrical molecules that stack up neatly, which allows them to form solids. When one of the carbons is not able to bond with the maximum number of hydrogens and instead ends up sharing electrons with a neighboring carbon more than once to form a double or triple bond, we have a point of unsaturation. This makes the molecule less stable, and the more unsaturation we have, the more liquid it is at room temperature. It also makes them less stable to cook with and more likely to acquire free radical damage. Monounsaturated fats have only a single point of unsaturation. In the picture, you can easily see this creates a bend in the molecule, making it stack less neatly and less stable. The oil with the greatest amount of monounsaturated fats in it in our diet is olive oil. This will be a liquid at room temperature, but will form a solid if it's placed in the refrigerator. The first cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil has the greatest amount of this type of fat. The polyunsaturated fats will have more than one carbon that is not fully saturated with hydrogen. These will be liquid at room temperature as well as in the refrigerator and are also less stable. Their lack of stability makes them less suitable for cooking when you are trying to avoid trans fatty acids, since they can easily form from polyunsaturated fats when they are cooked. Other important fatty acids are the phospholipids. These have a phosphate end which allows it to interact with water and is described as hydrophilic or water-loving. The other end of it is the fatty tail, which is hydrophobic or does not combine with water like most other lipids. This allows it to have a different chemical property than most other fats because they have different properties at different ends. These are used to make structures like cell membranes that need to keep watery substances contained inside or outside the cell, but still be able to have them against the surface. The other major group is the sterols, which are ring-shaped fats. The most common sterol is cholesterol and is found in animal fats. Our body is able to make all of the cholesterol we need, although we frequently consume it in our diet when eating animal products. Plants do not make cholesterol, but instead make other types of sterols. Proteins are what the body uses to make structures. The body does not like to use protein for energy and creates waste products when it is forced to use these as fuel. The basic building block of the protein is the peptide or amino acid. These will connect together and build proteins from a long chain of amino acids. Each amino acid has a similar structure. There is a central carbon atom with a hydrogen on one leg, an acid group on one, and an amine group on another, and finally the last leg has an R group, or a variable group. The only thing that differs among the 20 amino acids present in the body is what exactly is at R. When amino acids are linked together, they are joined by peptide bonds. Proteins are used to create structures in the body, and enzymes to control chemical reactions. DNA is an important structure in the body made using proteins. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid and is the structure that provides the blueprint or instructions to build every structure in every cell of the body. It is in the shape of a double helix. So there are two strands of DNA intertwined together in a coil, looking a lot like a ladder that has been twisted. The backbone or sides of the ladder are made up of sugar phosphate, but the rungs of the ladder are base pairs made of proteins. These base pairs are made from peptides. We have 4 different nucleotides in the DNA that pair in a specific pattern. Adenine, or A, pairs with thymine, or T, where guanine, or G, pairs with cytosine, or C. If we separate the base pairs, we will always be able to predict what the complementary or matched base pair will be, since they always pair in that same manner. RNA, or ribonucleic acid, a similar structure, uses similar pairing, but instead of having thymine, it will incorporate uracil, or U, whenever DNA has been used instead of thymine. So in RNA, U pairs with A. We will take a look at these in more detail soon in the cell. Another important protein-based structure is ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. This protein has 3 phosphate groups attached to it, and in each of those groups a great deal of energy is stored in the bonding of the 3rd phosphate group onto the molecule. It is referred to as a high-energy molecule because of the energy stored in the bonds and is used as an energy currency in the body. When the body does work, it breaks something down and it will get paid for the work in ATP, which it can use to fuel other reactions or processes in the body. Getting ATP from a process is a lot like getting a paycheck from going to work, and when you need to do other things in the body, it is like paying the bills with the money you got in that paycheck.